The country has woken up to reports that several Northern Cape schools have experienced a resurgence of COVID-19 cases. More than 520 staff and pupils have been infected just this week. 8 schools have been closed. And joining us now for an update on the situation is the Northern Cape MEC for Education, Mr. Zolile Monakali. Very good to have you with us this afternoon, sir. Now, if we look at the total number, it's 520 altogether. But how many of those are actually learners and how many are teachers?
Thank you very much. As the Department of Education, we are really concerned about the upsurge that we experience in our schools. From the more than 500 infected cases that we are seeing, the majority of them, 90% plus of them, are actually learners. It's mostly the learners that are affected that are actually disrupting the teaching and learning taking place currently.
So it's really over 400, over 430 even, of the learners that have contracted COVID-19. What does this say to you as the Northern Cape Education Department? Is this something that could have been projected, that so many of the learners would actually be contracting the virus?
Yes, to be precise, we are having 439 learners that have been infected in the province. And of course, as the Department of Education, we are working with the Department of Health to make sure that our schools are complying to the protocols. So we are making sure that we are vaccinated. Our learners must also attend to the vaccination, those that are above 18. But the challenge that we are experiencing is not basically at the schools. It's challenges that we are getting from our communities. Because learners are coming from communities, and then we are establishing that when they are at school, then they are infected. But actually, these things are coming from the communities.
And so how then do you actually plan to mitigate this? Because learners and actually even teachers themselves live in communities, they come from communities, and it's not entirely possible to have them in a bubble. So with the schools that still remain open, how are you going to try and mitigate these particular cases not spreading any further?
What we have done, we have closed 8 schools for the past week or so. But of those 8 schools, 5 schools have reopened. We have done the contact tracing and we have cleaned the schools. So those 5 schools are open. The 3 remaining schools that has not yet been opened, we are still busy with contact tracing to deal with the challenges that we are facing. But from an educational point of view, in the Northern Cape Department, most of our schools are following a differentiated timetabling model. In other words, we make sure not all of the learners come to the school at the same time, to make sure we comply to the social distancing requirement, so that we have other learners are coming in the morning and the others are coming in the afternoon, or others are coming today and the others the following day, just to make sure that we are having more space and we can comply to the regulations. We are also monitoring our schools very closely to make sure they comply with the non-pharmaceutical measures, to make sure learners wearing their masks, their sanitizers and PPE, everything. So I'm very satisfied that the schools are complying and doing their best to make sure we are complying to the regulations.
I believe you are already operating and using a already trimmed curriculum. How does this setback then affect even that curriculum?
It's very difficult, especially for the educators, to catch up. It's having a negative impact on teaching and learning taking place because of the limited time that educators are having. But what we are doing as the Department of Education, we are coming with extra interventions. We are having lock-in sessions, we are having Saturday classes, and during the holidays, whether autumn, spring, or winter classes, we make sure we get learners back, especially our grade 12s, so that they can try to catch up with the syllabus. But it's a very difficult situation for the educators to make sure they cover the syllabus.
And what are your thoughts regarding the postponement of the holidays, or the prospective postponement of the holidays? Do you think that's a good idea? Would that help in trying to contain COVID-19, do you think?
My personal view on it is that with those interventions and teaching and what have you, we are putting a lot of pressure on learners and on the educators, and therefore we must be able to balance between just giving the learners work to teach, and teaching and learning must take place continuously and not give them an opportunity to relax at some time. So from where I'm sitting is that we must have our breaks, but we must try during the breaks to accommodate those grades and learners that are having some challenges, that are not performing or are not covering the curriculum at the level at which they are supposed to cover it. But it's also not good to make it a point that the learners must be 24/7 just getting teaching and learning. That's also having a negative impact on the performance.
And with the curriculum that you've had to trim down, are you confident that this curriculum still suffices in the sense that those who study this curriculum will still get a quality, education? Was it not compromising the standard of the education that learners were supposed to be receiving?
Yeah, no, definitely. With the trimming of the curriculum, we're having a 3-year catching up period. In other words, whatever, if a learner is in grade 10, whatever is not covered in grade 10 in the next academic year, we are trying our utmost best to cover that work, so that when the learners arrive at grade 12, at least we should have covered as much as possible of the curriculum to make sure that they are covering all the work that they are supposed to do at the grade 12 level and have the quality of work that they should be able to perform at the correct level.
It seems to make sense if you're looking at learners maybe who are grade 8, 9, or 10, or even 11. But when it comes to the grade 12 learners and their curriculum, will they still be able to cover everything that's needed for their final year examinations and to ensure that they still have a quality certification?
At this point in time, it is a challenging period for the grade 12s, but as I'm saying, we are having intervention mechanisms that we are implementing currently. Our grade 12s are having log-in sessions, we are having weekend classes, and in the Northern Cape, we had autumn spring classes where we had all our learners during the holiday attended classes. We had our winter classes, and we are now in the process of planning for the spring classes so that we can make sure we catch up the lost time.
Mr. Monakali, as far as your vaccination drive is concerned, how is that progressing with the vaccination of teachers?
Our teachers, initially there was a lot of vaccine hesitation, but I can report positively that most of our educators did respond, initially very slow, but at this point in time I can be very confident that most of the educators did go for the vaccination. We are glad that at this point in time, even the 18-year-olds, especially in grade 11 and grade 12, will also be able to go for vaccination. We are in the process of working together with the Department of Health to make sure we encourage and we arrange for our grade 12 and grade 11s to be vaccinated, those that are 18 years and above.
What goes into deciding, Mr. Monakali, whether or not you are actually going to close a school? What are the parameters that you look for? Does there need to be a certain number of cases in a particular school for you to say, we need to shut the school down?
No, the first thing, we are advised by health on that issue. If we are having infections in our schools, we are engaging with health, and the health department will go in. They will do some investigation, and based on their assessment, they will make a recommendation to the department that these specific schools must be closed for a period of 10 days so that they can do their work and so on. So our intervention is purely based on the advice that we're getting from the Department of Health.
So with the 8 schools that have been closed, is the assumption then that all 520 cases are coming just from those 8 schools, or are there other schools outside of these 8 that have also had breakout cases?
No, definitely not. Not all the 526 cases are coming from those 8 schools. There are other schools with other cases, but the majority, the critical cases, majority of the cases are from those identified schools. But there are other schools where we're having learners that have been infected.
MEC for Education in the Northern Cape, we thank you very much for your time and bringing us up to speed with where the province is, specifically regarding schools and COVID-19. Thank you very much. That's MEC for Education in the Northern Cape, the MEC Monakali.